In this podcast episode, Nir Eyal delves deep into how our beliefs fundamentally shape our perception of reality, influence our emotions and actions, and frequently limit our potential. He discusses the distinctions between fact, faith, and belief, explains how the brain creates a personal simulation of reality filtered through prior experiences, and explores how expectations mold our experiences and vulnerabilities to distraction. This conversation also sheds light on practical strategies for recognizing, challenging, and reshaping limiting beliefs, the neuroscience behind motivation and distraction, and the interplay between beliefs, attention, anticipation, and agency in shaping human behavior and well-being. Nir Eyal begins by clarifying the important differences between fact, faith, and belief. A fact is an objective truth that remains true regardless of what one thinks or believes. For example, the Earth being spherical. Faith, by contrast, is a conviction held without the need for evidence, often concerning metaphysical or spiritual matters such as the afterlife. Beliefs occupy a middle ground. They are convictions open to revision based on new evidence. Crucially, beliefs are tools, not immutable truths, and can be chosen or changed. Understanding this distinction allows individuals to better scrutinize their internal operating system and decide which beliefs serve them or hinder them in life. Nir explains how the human brain cannot consciously process the overwhelming amount of sensory data it receives, roughly 11 million bits per second, processing only about 50 bits consciously at any given moment. To function, the brain uses predictive processing, constructing a constantly updated simulation of reality based on prior experiences, beliefs, and expectations. This simulation filters and interprets incoming data through a tiny keyhole of attention and anticipates what will happen next. As a result, no one sees reality exactly as it is. This framework has been demonstrated with visual illusions such as the coffer illusion, where cultural upbringing influences whether someone sees rectangles or circles, and the checkerboard illusion that reveals how the brain can misinterpret colors based on context, even when viewers intellectually understand the truth. These examples illustrate how perception is a constructed experience shaped by beliefs and prior knowledge. Beliefs influence three key psychological processes: attention, anticipation, and agency. Attention determines what we notice in the world, what we see. Anticipation colors how we emotionally prepare for experiences based on our expectations. Agency governs the actions we take in response to what we notice and expect. The famous wine study is cited to demonstrate anticipation. Participants tasting the same wine perceived it differently when told it was either cheap or expensive, and brain imaging showed that expectation altered their sensory pleasure. Likewise, believing oneself to be lucky or unlucky affects what opportunities one notices. A study found that self-professed lucky people spotted a hidden photo in a newspaper much faster than those who considered themselves unlucky, literally seeing opportunities that others missed. This demonstrates how beliefs physically shape our perception and experience of the world. Central to Eyal's approach is recognizing limiting beliefs, those that undermine motivation and increase suffering, and replacing them with liberating beliefs that empower and reduce pain. However, limiting beliefs are often invisible to ourselves while clearly visible in others. To uncover these beliefs, one must engage in reflection and questioning, similar to looking in a mirror to see one's face. Eyal highlights a process inspired by Byron Katie's The Work, where a belief is examined through a series of questions. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? How do I behave when I hold this belief? Who would I be without it? This reflective inquiry helps loosen rigid convictions by opening space for alternative perspectives or turnarounds, the opposites or variations of one's original belief, that can be tested for usefulness rather than absolute truth. Beliefs are thus viewed as flexible tools to adopt or discard depending on their utility. Eyal also discusses how beliefs influence physiological and psychological experiences, citing the power of prayer and suggestion. He recounts the story of Daniel Gisler, a skeptical commodities trader who learned hypnostation to undergo surgery without anesthesia, illustrating how focused belief and attention can alter conscious awareness of pain. Furthermore, prayer, even secularized forms that don't require faith in a deity, has been found to extend pain tolerance and confer health benefits. Eyal integrated this discovery into his own life, adopting gratitude, intentional mantras, and problem-solving prayers to cultivate mental strengths and peace. Prayer, in this secular sense, becomes a practical tool for reinforcing liberating beliefs and managing discomfort. The conversation touches on the nocebo effect, where negative expectations cause real physiological harm, demonstrating the potent influence of belief on health and experience. Eyal shares his personal struggle with an ADHD diagnosis, explaining how identifying with limiting labels can reinforce limiting beliefs and become self-fulfilling prophecies. While acknowledging real constraints, he emphasizes the importance of questioning whether such beliefs serve growth or merely perpetuate suffering. He also recounts Kurt Richter's 1950s rat swimming experiment, in which conditioned rats extended their swimming duration from 15 minutes to 60 hours by learning to expect rescue, illustrating how latent potential can be unlocked by shifting beliefs and expectations. A significant theme is managing the emotional discomfort that often drives distraction and hinders persistence. Eyal explains that chronic pain, especially neuroplastic pain without physical causes, is sustained by beliefs about safety and expectation of harm. Contemporary pain reprocessing therapy aims to recalibrate these beliefs by teaching patients to reinterpret pain signals as non-threatening and reduce urgency, thus breaking feedback loops of fear and suffering. Similarly, he emphasizes developing agency over discomfort by repeated exposure and attitude shifts, such as moving until movements no longer hurt, to retrain the brain and reduce suffering even when pain persists. Eyal situates human negativity bias, a heightened sensitivity to threats, in evolutionary context, explaining why modern media exploits this tendency to focus on alarming news to capture attention. While this bias had survival value in ancestral environments, in today's world, it often provokes unnecessary suffering and anxiety. Because our brains are wired to prioritize threats, exposure to relentless negativity can distort our perception of reality and well-being. This evolutionary mismatch highlights the importance of consciously managing beliefs and media consumption to avoid amplifying limiting narratives or expectations of fear and helplessness. The discussion explores René Girard's concept of mimetic desire, where much of what individuals want is shaped by cultural and social imitation rather than genuine personal inclination. This raises challenges in discerning what one truly values versus what one has unconsciously absorbed from others. Eyal asserts that because beliefs shape perception and behavior, it is imperative to identify beliefs adopted uncritically, especially those inherited from upbringing, culture, or media. He contends that people are already gaslighting themselves by absorbing beliefs without consent. The goal is to reclaim agency by intentionally selecting beliefs that align authentically with one's values and promote well-being. While persistence is widely recognized as key to success, Eyal cautions that indiscriminate persistence can be harmful. He proposes criteria to discern when to continue and when to quit, setting checkpoints to evaluate progress, ensuring ongoing learning from failures, and assessing whether persistence will yield meaningful payoffs. He acknowledges having personally quit unhealthy relationships and toxic workplaces, but also recounts persistence through plateaus in personal health and development. Effective persistence requires balance, intentional evaluation, and aligning effort with realistic goals and contexts. Eyal challenges conventional views by defining distraction not simply as lack of focus, but as actions that pull one away from planned values and goals. The opposite of distraction is traction, actions aligned with intentions and values. He emphasizes that a behavior like watching Netflix or playing video games is not a distraction if it is consciously chosen as part of one's plan. Critically, 90% of distractions arise from internal triggers, uncomfortable emotions such as boredom, anxiety, or loneliness, not external notifications as commonly assumed. Distraction serves as an attempt to soothe or escape these discomforts. Mastering distraction thus involves learning how to manage internal triggers healthily rather than blaming technology. Motivation, Eyal explains, is fundamentally about escaping discomfort rather than chasing pleasure. Craving, desire, and urges create tension or pain that spurs action toward relief. Recognizing that life's pursuit is essentially pain management reframes challenges like time, money, and weight management. By shifting one's interpretation of discomfort, suffering can be reduced, enabling greater freedom and agency. To reclaim focus and live as one's authentic self, Eyal advocates mastering internal triggers using a toolkit of strategies. One practical technique is the 10-minute rule, borrowed from acceptance and commitment therapy, where individuals permit themselves to give in to distractions, but only after a short delay, gradually strengthening willpower and demonstrating personal agency over urges. Crucially, resisting distraction isn't about strict denial, which prompts psychological reactance, but about allowing choice and postponement, which builds self-trust and control over time. Developing a portfolio of such tools tailored to one's tendencies is necessary for sustained traction. Eyal highlights the importance of aligning daily life with core values, the qualities and attributes one aspires to embody, by explicitly planning how to allocate time rather than relying on to-do lists alone. To-do lists often become overwhelming registers of outputs without scheduled inputs, leading to procrastination and discouragement from incomplete tasks. Time boxing, scheduling fixed periods for activities, reframes productivity around consistency and presence rather than completion, helping individuals realistically assess task durations and make conscious trade-offs. Recognizing that time is the most precious and finite resource encourages generosity with money but stinginess with time, emphasizing intentional living aligned with authentic priorities. Eyal introduces the motivation triangle, consisting of benefit, behavior, and belief. Most people assume if they want to benefit and know the required behavior, they will act accordingly. However, belief is the missing foundation. Without trusting that one will achieve the benefit or has the capacity to perform the behavior, motivation collapses. Beliefs thus hold the entire motivational system together and must be cultivated alongside knowledge and desire. A key takeaway Eyal stresses is the necessity of intellectual humility, recognizing that we do not see reality as it truly is, and that our beliefs are often flawed or incomplete. Holding beliefs loosely, rather than with rigid certainty, opens space for reflection, growth, and peace. Eyal emphasizes resisting self-righteousness and adopting the capacity to argue even for perspectives opposite our own, fostering balanced and thoughtful engagement with complex issues. The heart of self-knowledge lies in understanding one's own belief system, the subconscious operating system that filters perception and drives behavior. Many limiting beliefs operate unnoticed beneath conscious awareness, shaping experiences in ways that may cause unnecessary suffering. By bringing these to light and assessing their usefulness, individuals deepen their understanding of what governs their lives and gain freedom to rewrite their internal narratives. Eyal recounts studies showing how people often anticipate negative social reactions that never occur, effectively creating suffering through expectation. He acknowledges the real presence of suffering and conflict in the world, but encourages adopting a balanced perspective. The world is both terrible and better now than ever before. Embracing this complexity reduces despair and supports a hopeful, active stance toward life. He advocates extending the benefit of the doubt as a measure of love and compassion, recognizing that others often act from limited tools or unconscious forces rather than malice. This perspective fosters greater peace by softening judgments and reducing unnecessary emotional reactivity. Finally, the conversation touches on the nuanced view of free will and responsibility. Recognizing that individuals' actions can be influenced by brain states, external circumstances, or unconscious forces does not negate consequences, but invites compassionate understanding. This perspective balances accountability with empathy, suggesting that true freedom arises from awareness, intentional belief choice, and responding thoughtfully rather than reacting unconsciously.